Every waking moment is the nexus of these songwriting styles. The moment when Citizen Cope transitions from neo soul, 60s folky to something else. A kind of hip hop generation Van Morrison. More interested in questions than answers, grays than black and whites.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Audiophiles, you bastard. My name's John. His name is Andy. Lady, if you want to find a lover, then you look no further, for I'm gonna be your only. Searching start of the season, and my only reason is that I'll get to you. More of that later. But first, we have a tune to listen to. Brother Andy has carefully selected using tweezers and cotton wool. What have you got for us?
I have a an artist that is no stranger to the channel. You've heard a couple of tracks by him at this point. The man's name, at least when he appears on stage, is Citizen Cope.
Oh,
So
yes.
yes. I've had you listen to one of his more recent works. One from go ahead.
Healing Hands,
Yes.
I do remember. And the other one was, as soon as you say it, I remember it. But yeah, go on.
Oh man, hold on a second. We did the Victory March. Was
That's it.
the
Yeah,
Yeah, the most
I do
recent
remember
track
that.
by him that we've done. And so I figured we'd go even further back in his catalog and drum up a another track by him for you to check out. This one is called Back Together.
Okay.
So there you go. Got some familiarity with the artist. Here's a new track for you to go off and check out. Please do so and come back and let us all know what you think.
Okay, the spell is broken. With that start, straight away, I love to boogie. T-Rex. Sorry. It clearly isn't. Let's go again. Mind wiped clean.
In the middle of a vendetta between me and myself. I'll show.
Yeah, really nice start of that. So we get I Love to Boogie, and then I will call them the Owl Sisters. Woo woo, woo woo, coming in. A nice acoustic guitar, sounds great. And then we get a drum fill, and it's a proper sort of clatter down the stairs, full jobby. You know, drumming gorilla. And then we get introduction of the other instruments. And the thing I could hear really faintly in this channel, a sort of guitar squawking away. And it sounded sometimes like it was wah wah, but I'm not 100% sure. And then this channel here, we just get like piano notes almost, rather than full chords or whatever. Really sort of ponderous, or yeah, interesting. Really nice. And then the beat sort of is becoming. I don't know that it's a real set of meaty paws clapping together. I think it's facsimile, but it's got that sort of hand clappy type sound to it. Really sort of strong sessional groove to it, which is nice. And then comes your man singing. And he has got that voice I remember from before. It's a good voice, and it has like it's weird to say this, but it has like a weird softness to it, but it's a leading edge of softness. Not quite slacker, but and just like all the sort of sharp bits that could possibly poke you have just been gently sanded down or rounded off. It's a very nice sound to his voice. Okay, so this guy's.
Could use a witness, but I just ain't found one yet. I sent a message in a bottle, took another swallow. I heard it didn't get there. I heard that it had missed you, but this is what it said. And today the things ain't gone my way, I'm back together again. I'm staring in the mirror and it's been so long since I see you, my friend. And today the things ain't gone my way, I'm back together again. I'm staring in the mirror and it's been so long since I see you, my friend. Yeah, yeah. Cheap women, cheap wine.
Got it. Okay. So that was the chorus, obviously. And we had some nice, I think it's keyboards, again, doing a version of almost like a string section. So we've had many times before, these long, stretchy out notes that sort of form a lattice of planks as a foundation for him to stretch his vocals out. Sounds really nice. Yeah, interesting. Scribble them down. And then it seems like every door or joining section of this song is facilitated by a nice drum roll, which is as good as well as any. So we got this next little bit of the Owl sisters come back woo wooing, and the other instruments you could definitely could hear a nice bass. That piano is really nice, just tinkling away, particularly in the chorus actually. But the two guitars, and for me, the acoustic really shone in that little sort of isolated section without the drums. Just sounded great. But it almost sounds like the two guitars are just nattering to each other, kind of oblivious of what else is going on. Like two guys waiting at a bus station, put the world to rights. Yeah, funny. Sounds really great. And now we're back into the sort of verse structure again.
Cheap money, cheap time, these things do not exist. But what makes that temptation just so hard to resist? That stolen Picasso,
really nice.
the best above your head. I wish that you could hear me, but this is what I said. Today the things ain't gone my way, I'm back together again. I'm staring in the mirror, it's been so long since I see you, my friend. And today the things ain't gone my way, I'm back together again. I'm staring in the mirror, it's been so long since I see you, my friend. Yeah, yeah.
A lot stronger now. Cool. Yeah, I enjoyed that. It's interesting. For me, said at the start something about vendetta between me and myself, and then that chorus bit going on about things going his way and back together and staring in the mirror. Wanting to see you, my friend. So there's this internal conflict, I guess. Perhaps even a loss of confidence, and then trying to resolve this and be comfortable in yourself again is what I'm getting from this without getting that much of the lyrics. And that's really interesting because if you take that as the mainstay of the song, then that sort of chattering guitar almost feels like an internal monologue. And the piano, we've said before, can be such an emotive instrument. And I think that motif in the piano, just those few notes, has that sort of tinge of reflection and perhaps regret. There's just a little bit of sort of poignancy to it. Tinged poignancy. Yeah, nice. That's me reading into it. Could be anything at all. But that's what I think. So, and there was something in that line about stop Casa as well. I was thinking about something else, so I didn't get the context around it. So we'll have to ask Andy about that. In fact, we'll have to ask Andy about all of this. So let's go back to him and chew it over right now.
Well, this one pretty much writes itself. We are back together here, John. What did you make of the track by the same name by Citizen Cope?
But you're going to say something like, "Unlike a spinal surgeon, we're back together." Yeah, it starts off with this sort of best described as sort of almost tinny tapping that starts, and some things are just basically ingrained into you. And that sound, although it's, I think, a touch slower, will always be to me the start of I Love to Boogie by T-Rex. I'm sorry, but it just is every time. And the film Billy Elliot did such a good job of popularizing that song. So hats off to them. However, within a couple of seconds, Mark Bolan's curls retreat from my mind's eye in a cloud of dry ice, as is only right, as we hear these owlish woohoos of some female backing singers riding atop a lovely struck acoustic guitar. We get a sprightly fill, which heralds the arrival of the drums and pretty much everything else. Really interesting, sort of, it comes in. Again, we talked about another track recently, how it's mixed and everything. This one's quite interesting. So in the left channel, shoved down in the mix, is an interesting guitar, which at first I'm not quite sure what it's doing, but it's squawking away in a language which I believe is that of the tribe of the Wawa. A piano joins over the hoots. In the right channel, sort of. It's sort of about 2:00, 2:30, in terms of the dial. Just as your man starts singing. Now, he does have this relaxed edge to his voice, which sounds like a bit of a, oxymoron, relaxed and edge, but it's like all the sort of corners of his vocals of someone who's been absentmindedly polishing with emery cloth, and it's just sort of smoothed out, and you know that nothing's sharp enough to hurt you. It has a lovely, and I can hear it, particularly in Healing Hands, the same sort of the voice.
Yeah,
really, and it's a great sound to it. So I really like his voice. It does take me a little while to acclimatise to his delivery, which is part of course for me anyway. But there's something about being stuck in a vendetta between me and myself. At this point, I noticed that the main beat has morphed into, I believe, a facsimile of hand claps. I'm pretty sure that this sound doesn't come from no meaty paws bounding together, but I could be wrong. There's all this texture in the song, which is coming from that aforementioned electric guitar and the even more aforementioned acoustic guitar. And it's almost like they're chatting together, like a couple of blokes putting the world to rights, sitting at a bus stop, almost oblivious of what else is going on in the song. Well, not quite, but it's great. And it's really interesting, and it does add this sort of texture to it. But meanwhile, over in the right channel, that piano is doing this lovely motif, played out really rather than booming chords as single notes. Now, we've discussed before a number of times how emotive the piano as an instrument can be. And this little tune, motif, whatever you want to call it, it feels, I would describe as pickled poignancy. There's a sort of like a sort of nostalgia type reflection, but with a bit of a sharp tang, vinaigrette of regret. Perhaps I just like saying that, but something like that anyway. So we get some more lyrics. I sent a message in a bottle, took another swallow, heard it didn't get there. This is no sting, but it's just an interesting couple of lines there. A message in a bottle, but I took another swallow. So it's almost like he's telling himself something during self-medication. Really
Right.
interesting. Another fill introduced is the chorus, and in time-honored tradition, again, something we talked about a lot, we get these nice, long, stretchy notes, which I believe is a keyboard aping a string section, but it's just this lovely, long sort of sounds. And they're planking out across the chorus, providing this platform for his voice to go through the whole routine of the sun salutation. He's stretching away all the way from downward dog to warrior pose and all that vocally. Really nice. And I get some of it. I did well here, I thought. So about two little things go my way. I'm back together again. I'm staring in the mirror, and it's been so long since I've seen you, my friend. So this repeats again. So I reckon this is obviously about internal conflict and the attempt to resolve said conflict within, and to feel comfortable with, or perhaps even confident with yourself once more.
Yeah.
So this harks back to a couple of things I said. I think I said at the end of the action, but well, I remember because I didn't write them down. If that's the case, it makes for me anyway, the musical side of it with the two guitars chatting away, almost like an internal monologue going along. And it does add backing to that piano as this poignant sort of, little bit of Kramer versus Kramer going on over there, in terms of the sort of emotional side of it, which is very well done. So we had a nice drum fill, and it seems like, I think I said in the reaction, that every juncture of this song is heralded by a bit of a drum fill using the sort of connected tissue to the next bit, which is a great way of doing things, and I have no problem with that. We go to a nice little cameo of the Owl Sisters, as I call them, and the instruments isolated from the drums, and it gives you a chance, just by taking the drums away, I don't think anything else, just the drums away, but the instruments just come to the fore just a touch more. And then this bit, the acoustic guitar particularly shines for me. It just has a lovely sound to it. Yeah. And then we go back into the verse structure again, and he starts off something about cheap women and cheap wine, cheap money, cheap time. These things do not exist, which again is interesting. There is always a cost. Whether it is you or another player, somebody always pays. Yeah. And just as I'm pondering this, I hear the word stolen Picasso going past me like a drive-by shooting. It tweaks my curiosity, but alas, I caught no context either side of it, so I file that mentally under for Andy to explain. We go through a couple more turns through the chorus. Again, isolation. The owl chorus, as I call it. This time, when the drums drop out for just a few bars, it's the wah-wah guitar that's really shining for me. And I don't know, they're probably all the same volume as they were last time. It's just this time my ear picks that. Mm-hmm. It could be that that's slightly up in the mix. It may not be, but that's what shines through there. And then we woohoo all the way through to the end of this fairly brief ditty. So yeah, I will say I really enjoyed this. I thought it was interesting, clever, musically well done and put together. It had like about 4 motifs, as it were, but they were just put together really nicely. I think, on balance, I remember Healing Hands a lot more than I do the March.
The Victory March, yeah.
Yeah, the Victory March. I think the surprise of Healing Hands, the way it went for this guitar, One Man Is Truth, into this sort of reggae influence, beats this song, but only by a smidgen. I think they're both really enjoyable.
Awesome, fair. And in my head, I thought that's how you would rank them after hearing this one, sort of putting this one at 2, but closer to 1 than 3. So that totally checks out. You're absolutely right about the dynamics between the two guitar. One also acoustic, the other electric. One sort of untouched, but strident in its pursuit of happiness, if in to, sort of take what he's going for here. And the other questioning and faint and affected by Wah, and it's almost like his own duality, like that, struggling with himself, like he wants to strive to be on the straight and narrow, but there's this niggling self-doubt in the form of a very weird sounds sort of bubbling underneath, and how those two communicate with each other is a lot like you had just described this, the inner dialogue between in an individual, sort of between two halves or two conflicting interests that they might have. So I've always found that to be really clever too. It's funny about the Picasso line though, because he has a song called Pablo Picasso that I think is on the album that precedes this. So I don't know if that is maybe an allusion to his other persona, perhaps the one that got into trouble. But I don't really know, to be completely honest with you. I know that the overall gist of the song is exactly what you assume it is, which in itself is kind of clever, because just on face value, you read the name on the back of the album liner, or you hear it introduced on a radio station, and you think, oh my God, it's the old trope of like, back together, we've gotten back together again between two parties, maybe distant lovers that have bridged that gap. But it's not. It's about an individual, which is, great, and sheds light on mental health and all the and addiction struggles, maybe, and all these other things that are always worth taking a deeper dive and look into. So I'm really glad you liked it, John. Let's get into a little bit about him, but mostly about the album and what was said about it at the time, since we have yet to cover any track off this album. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, just wondering, because I haven't heard this song. You say you did a song called Pablo Picasso, but interesting enough, Jonathan Richman did a song called um, Pablo Picasso. And I wonder if he's stolen Picasso because he covered it. It probably isn't. It probably isn't the same song, but
But maybe
it'd be fun if it was.
maybe just because it perhaps inspired that, and it might sound nothing like it, but still the idea that he took from another artist to create art on his own, is maybe what he's alluding to. I don't know. It's interesting. Now I kind of want to look into that further. This little fleeting line now has become a point. But yeah, quick recap. Clarence Greenwood, born May 20th, 1968, also known by his stage name Citizen Cope, is an American singer-songwriter and producer. Greenwood currently lives in Los Angeles and Fort Greene, Brooklyn, and is married to singer-songwriter Alice Smith. His music is commonly described as a mix of blues, soul, hip-hop, folk, and rock, and he is credited for having released 11 albums over his career, spanning from 1990 until his last album released in 2023, which was the Victory March, the title track of which you reacted to, as we discussed in the past year on the channel. This song, Back Together, is the opening track on his 2006 self-produced album, Every Waking Moment. And Every Waking Moment debuted at number 69 on the Billboard 200 chart. Reviewing the album for Paste magazine leading up to its release in 2006, Justin Hopper would write, "Whether it's Baltimore hustlers, lost souls in the nation's capital, or the victims, both foreign and homegrown, of war, the characters in Cope's songs from the Clarence Greenwood record 2006 have walked, talked, protested on the seedy streets paved by the traditions of the American observational songwriter. But even as Cope sat on his perch, part sniper, part train spotter, another side of his personality became apparent, Rapunzel, emitting faint calls for help. Every waking moment is the nexus of these songwriting styles. The moment when Citizen Cope transitions from neo-soul, 60s folky to something else. A kind of hip-hop generation Van Morrison. More interested in questions than answers, grays than black and whites. This new album displays a tremendous increase in maturity, past the derelict train station of genre blend, the forgotten depot where a mashup of hip-hop and folk rings new and noteworthy, and onto the path toward a personal enlightenment. thought that was a really excellent write-up, because a lot of his songs are about these I don't know, these like almost like like a modern day the Canterbury Tales, where it's the lesser thans that get put in the right light. And I've always loved that about his writing. And he's right, while the stuff that preceded this album is really good and there are some great tracks, this as a whole maybe the most complete work at this point in his career. Writing for the Quinnipiac Chronicle, Garrett Woodward reviewed the album and gave it 4 out of 5 stars. He said, right on the gate, or pardon me, right out of the gates, Back Together opens the record with a catchy, soulful feel, a definite find for any Cope fan. As the album progresses, we find ourselves in the midst of Greenwood's pain, happiness, love lost, and love found in the slow paced tracks, Every Waking Moment, and More Than It Seems, while Brother Lee takes it up a notch with a sound 4 out of 5 doctors recommend. Upon hearing the melodic John Lennon, one can feel the political, religious, and social angst Greenwood is experiencing in this time of war and great change. That's also something you have to sort of take into consideration. We're in the midst of 2 Middle Eastern war efforts, one in Iraq and the other the overall terrorism, mostly in Afghanistan. The war on terror, I should say, in Afghanistan. So rounding out the disc is the instrument-strewn awe and poignantly acoustic Left for Dead. He would go on to write, on his 3rd try, Citizen Cope has struck gold. All the potential his fans felt that he was capable of finally has been delivered on this 11-track LP. Do yourself a favor, clear your schedule, get this album, and give your musical body a hearty dose of what all the cool kids are listening to. And finally, independent radio station WYCE published a piece on their website devoted to Cope upon the release of the album, and they wrote, Greenwood grew up listening to radio and records in awe, determined that what he was hearing was the direct result of being ordained, perceiving it as magic, not understanding how a sound coming out of speakers could make him feel things he couldn't explain. But what's clear when you listen to Citizen Cope's own music now, years after he sat transfixed in front of his stereo, is that he is ordained, or touched, or blessed, or however you want to say it. The man has a gift, and he wants to share it with you. It's been more evident it's never been more evident as on Every Waking Moment, his 3rd album. If you heard any of Cope's works in the past few years, you already know how quickly he can paint a masterpiece with the lightest brushstrokes. He takes snapshots of the world around him and turns them into universal truths. He sets them to the simplest melodies and weds those in turn to the most soul-stirring grooves. So, let's jump into these lyrics, sir. Been stuck in the middle of a vendetta between me and myself. I sure could use a witness, but I just ain't found no one yet. I sent a message in a bottle, took another swallow. I heard it didn't get there. I heard that it had missed ya. Well, this is what it said. 2 little things, they go my way. I'm back together again. I'm staring in the middle, and it's been so long since I've seen you, my friend. 2 little things, they go my way. I'm back together again. I'm staring in the middle, and it's been so long since I've seen you, my friend. Yeah, yeah. Cheap rum, cheap wine, cheap money, cheap time. These things do not exist. But what makes that temptation just so hard to resist? That stolen Picasso, the mess above your head. I wish that you heard me. This is what I said. 2 little things, they go my way. I'm back together again. I'm staring in the middle, and it's been so long since I've seen you, my friend. 2 little things, they go my way. I'm back together again. I'm staring in the middle, and it's been so long since I've seen you, my friend. Yeah, yeah. I really love this idea of like I'm staring in the middle, like I'm right in the middle of like going back to those old ways or seeing my potential in my old self. But it still sounds like even then, Dead Set at the Middle is the closest he's been to that better version of himself in quite a long time. So close, in fact, that he can see it. That the reattaining of this is palpable and it like tangible. So yeah, I just love that idea of like he's not saying he's perfect, but damn, he knows he's pushing closer to getting there each step that he takes. Which is really self-aware and in a way kind of self-deprecating because you're not saying you've mended all the fences and you've reached the goal. You're just saying, for God's sakes, I can see a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm just going to keep pushing. So yeah, I really love this song. I think a lot of people, no matter what you're going through, your vice, just your mental fog, anything can kind of relate or put their own narrative to this, even though it may be different than what Greenwood was relating to himself when he penned it. So yeah, really great song, man, and I'm really glad you enjoyed it. There's probably going to be more from this guy because, as I mentioned, you could take his roughest and newest work and still find real gems in there. It's not till about this point though that entire albums became gems as they would then release. You could probably argue that the one before this came really close in and of itself, and if you said that, I wouldn't argue. But this is right around, as they said, this sort of this nexus point for him. So glad I could get this track and this album on the channel, and I'm really glad that you enjoyed it, John. Man, I really appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah, no problem at all. Enjoy that.
Excellent, excellent. Guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you thought of this track by Citizen Cope. If you haven't yet seen our other ones, I'm probably going to create a playlist now that we're at this sort of coveted 3-song mark. That's usually initiative for us to create a playlist. So I'll create a playlist, link that down in the comments field below, or the description field below. What I'd love for is to hear from you guys down in the comments field. Other tracks we could check out by him or any other artists, whatever you feel like adding. Please do so down there. We love hearing from you guys. Also, like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done any or all of those things to this point. Really does help us over here at the channel, and we really, really do appreciate it. All that out of the way, hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.